kind of what I say all the time is to leave no gift behind. A lot of people have, everyone has gifts that were given by God, distributed among the believers. People have different expertises, different backgrounds, educations, gifts, knowledge. And what I've noticed over the years in Lebanon is that there's a lack of organization within the kingdom of how those gifts reach the field. So often it just hodgepodge way. It happens. I like to always say that ministry moves at the speed of relationships. And so when our relationships are limited, then we find limited opportunities. When we want to, let's say, take a trip to Lebanon, we feel God tugging us that way. We ask our contacts, hey, do you know anybody in Lebanon? And say, oh, I heard of a guy. And then this is how it usually happens. Is that, well, do you have his contact? Okay, sure, yeah. Email that guy, whoever he is. And he may be with a church in Lebanon, or he may be a missionary who used to serve in Lebanon. And then you end up finding a guy. And you don't know if he's the right guy for what you want to do, but you just try. And a lot of people don't share contacts with one another as well. So you notice if you get connected with a local church in Lebanon, they'll kind of intentionally or not, sometimes, not share you with other people, or not even tell you that there's a lot of other work going on in the country, because they're interested in promoting, what they're doing. So all of these observations, that I've seen have just made me really, have a growing desire to see more efficiency and coordination going on in the kingdom. And it kind of reminds me of the days before, right? Before the internet, each person had, their, information was much more in silos. And the internet was a way where you figure out, we can actually plug in different computers to one another, and they can all, host in. And my information becomes accessible to you, and your information becomes accessible to me. And then we can all, the more it grows, then it becomes a worldwide web of information, because it's all shared. Well, I think that the kingdom needs infrastructure like that. The kingdom also needs those channels of relationships to be open, so that so that people can Google things and find where they need to go, find the information that they need to learn, and find the partners that they can most effectively partner with. So I think I actually do have so let's see if I can get this PowerPoint going. Probably need to turn on the TV. This is a Sharp TV. Okay. So yeah, that was kind of a backdoor way to start talking about the MEC, but I figure it gives you kind of an idea of what the impetus, one of the impetus are for founding the MEC. This is my little slide that says ministry moves at the speed of relationships. And I love this photo. This was a graphic that one of our newsletters, the Horizons newsletters, because each of these little points, these little nodes and those connections, forms together one great handshake of collaboration in God's kingdom. And so I see all these points in the US, all these points in the Middle East, other places. They need those connections. And that's why we're trying to add kingdom infrastructure through. And so just like the internet, nobody owns the internet, right? Well, nobody owns the infrastructure either. Nobody owns the kingdom except God. And so what we're trying to do within Lebanon is we're trying to, and beyond, is we're trying to look at the ecosystem of the kingdom and add infrastructure to it. So for the internet, you can't own the internet, but you can own a bunch of servers. And if you have a whole lot of servers, you plug those in and you can start, offering those so that people can host their websites on your servers, they can host their files, things like that. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to add different pieces of infrastructure to the kingdom so that we can be complementary to what God already has been investing in. So there are already theological seminaries in Lebanon. There are churches all over the place, over 100, I think 110 or so evangelical churches throughout Lebanon, and more obviously throughout the Middle East. You have ministry center organizations like Horizons or others, and we have different media ministries as well. Somebody has a studio over here, somebody has a ministry over there. So what the MEC is doing is adding a lot of different components, physically and virtually, so those connections happen between the churches and make the coordination more efficient. And one thing that I was sharing with the sound guy who was orienting me yesterday, Dave, the sound guy. So I was telling him about a sound engineer who came to Lebanon to put on a training. And so he found a pastor to work with in Beirut, hearted pastor. And this pastor said, hey, we will set you up with a conference so that you can teach sound engineers in Lebanon how to use the soundboard to make the worship service sound better, how to do EQ, how to mix live and different, how to do the instruments and the voices mix and all of that stuff. And so this pastor invited other churches to attend, but nobody really showed up. A couple, maybe 2 or 3 guys that were interested in learning about the sound system. And this is something we see all the time, which is that a lot of the time when there's an event at one church, other churches don't show up for that event, especially churches of other denominations. So if there's a Pentecostal church that that hosts an event, a lot of the Baptists are a little bit, not sure whether they want to send their people over there. They might get weird ideas, things like that, or they might, end up stealing our sheep, and we might lose members to that other church, or that the kind of competition mentality sometimes creeps in there. So what I was telling the sound guy is that I felt that was kind of a waste of that sound engineer's time, and taking time off of work and buying the ticket and accommodations and all the coordination just for 2 or 3 guys. And I hope they were blessed. But that's a big reason. That's one of the 1,000 examples of things that happen, that they just happen in a little silo. And so what we found is that when we host as Horizons, when we host events, because we have relationships with all the different evangelical churches in Lebanon and beyond, people show up in greater numbers because it's one particular church. It's neutral. It's viewed as more neutral. And so what the MEC is trying to do is create that neutral space so that when a sound engineer comes, we have already connections with worship leaders throughout the different churches. And we have a church relations director in Lebanon who connects with all these different pastors, and he can put out the word for sure. And we say we got the sound engineering training, and then we have people of all different denominations that are coming together, and so we could get 25 different people from 20 churches rather than 3 church, all on one soundboard. So this is just one illustration. Another thing that we're doing through the MEC is we're doing specialized training through. Now, a lot of you know that that Lebanon has been in a sustained collapse economically, and the currency has just become really devalued. So it's lost over 95% of the value of its currency. So when somebody was making about $1,000 per month and was able to get by, now that's really US dollars now. So it's become really unsustainable to live and work in Lebanon. So we have been trying to provide as many internships to give some income to interns, and then also at the same time to give them ministry opportunities. So some of the different internships that we have going on are design interns. These are a few of the interns that, as of last summer, now we have a bigger group. I think there may be 12 or 13 between the design and fine arts interns, and they also teach classes, art classes, and so I think we have about 35 visual arts students. We also have worship interns, which are not on here, and they're teaching right now private music lessons to believers throughout Lebanon from different churches, so that they can start participating in their worship teams. So that we have about 45 music students right now. And then we have like tech interns that are learning full stack web development. And so every time we have kind of these groups of interns and volunteers and trainees, you find that people show up with needs and people show up with resources. People show up with knowledge, show up with curiosity. And when we learn from one another, then we actually have a platform where we can give and we can take. And we also find that there's this platform can facilitate Western or even Chinese or wherever global partners to come together and find where they can plug in to use their gifts. So what we're doing in this session is kind of giving an overview of the MEC. In subsequent sessions, we're going to talk more focused in three different kind of areas of the MEC, which are MEC Proclaim, which is our evangelism part, people for ministry, for evangelism and discipleship. We also have MEC Grow, which is our kind of church development side. And then we also have MEC, the media side. So I'm not going to go through all the slides right now, but I will. So right now I'll just show you this. So currently what we've got is we have virtual spaces and physical spaces that we're offering as infrastructure in the kingdom. So if we look at the virtual spaces, we have 17 online cohorts that going. Some of those are at certain times. So what these are different different subjects or different disciplines that we're meeting about in order to learn from one another. And we have one of the facilitators of some of the cohorts here with us. This is Ziad. Hey, Ziad. Would you like to come up and share a little bit about some of the online cohorts before we move on? Yeah. I need to probably give you my microphone. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll just share a few words about some of those cohorts. Pierre mentioned Proclaim. Proclaim is an evangelistic tool. I need the mic.
Yes. Yeah, I think the mic, we can just put this on. Put this on the podium.
So we have ongoing cohorts. Those are in Zoom and in person, and both at the same time. One of them is Proclaim, and this is evangelistic. So we just finished training the Engage course, which is on how to reach Islam. And people join from all over the country, and we have even people joining from neighboring countries available on Zoom. We have from Jordan, we have from Syria, and different countries around, mostly from Lebanon. And we have different teachers from within Horizon and from outside who come and help and volunteer, give their time. We have another it's called CARE, MEC CARE. MEC CARE is on counseling. And we've been training members of churches in counseling care. And mainly we're telling them, take this course and see what you need to do, what to care for the people around you, and how can you do it better. And we have specialists in counseling who are volunteering, giving their time, and they're joining even from different countries, not only from Lebanon, teachers from Jordan and other countries teaching in Arabic, and they give their slides in English as well. And we provide the material. So we provide like a platform for these churches so that they can learn, so that they can benefit and be productive in their communities and reach out for their communities. We cannot reach out all of Lebanon or Syria, but we can train those churches, those members, so that they can reach out in their communities, and we praise God for that.
Thank you, Ziad. And so we're going to be going more in depth into like the MEC CARE cohort in the next breakout session. So I don't know if you guys will all be with us or we'll get new people, but if you more about that. And so what I love about it is that we're okay. Here's what I'm actually going to show you. I'm going to show you the MEC Pentagon chart. Okay, I think it's time. Okay, so we're breaking out the Pentagon. So so when I was dreaming the concept of the MEC, it's really been a dream that that I think my father kind of dreamed up the foundation for it. And then in around 2016, I started to kind of add more detail to that dream of having a, for missions. And so the question that was in my head when I was thinking up this particular chart and the kind of the plan for the MEC is, what is it going to take to make a missions movement from the Middle East happen? What is missing right now? So I was thinking about our ministry among the churches, what we're seeing as, what are the missing pieces? What are the problems with the system? And like I told you before, one of the problems is the silo, the silos that are operating where, we're each doing our own different thing as a different church or denomination or organization. We're not connected enough. That was one of the issues. But then just looking at the maybe the weak spots in the church in the Middle East and saying, how can we get the church in the Middle East where it could actually not just receive missionaries effectively? What about send missionaries effectively? And so what I came up with is this chart to try to be as as we can about what is needed for the Great Commission. So the way that I like to express this is there's a sentence, kind of a long, maybe each one of these 5 parts has a sentence. So I'm going to use this long remote as my pointer. So the basis of this is health. You need, if you're going to think of having a missions sending mechanism. So if you're going to be able to send missionaries, you need a firm on which to be. So I was really thinking about what does it take to have a healthy church? And you really need healthy families. You need, you got the laser going on. All right. Can you see it when it hits the screen? I don't see it. Anyway. So you need healthy families, you need healthy leaders, and you need healthy administrations. And I found that there are weaknesses in that in the Middle East in all 3 of these areas, We have families that are affected by the Islamic view of women. The traditional Middle Eastern family roles make it make for some unhealthy families sometimes. There's abuse going on even in believing families. There's ignorance about how to raise children in a godly way instead of being authoritarian, learning how to be godly parents. And so if we don't have families that are healthy, how are we going to have a large number of families to choose from to be able to send to do missions in a healthy way? So we need that family element. We need also healthy leaders. There are unhealthy leadership models throughout the Middle East that are really affected by the culture around them, affected by the political leaders around them, and we need ways to train the servant model, the servant leadership model of Christ in the churches, and then also administration. I think a lot of the churches are what I would call the one-man show kind of model for churches, where you've got the pastor and he does everything. He preaches, he teaches, he waves his hands for the worship to lead the worship. He collects the offerings, he counts the offerings, he does everything. Now, is this healthy for the church? For everything in the church to be done by the pastor? Not really. And then one thing that happens to the pastors like that is they get very overworked and burnt out, and they feel alone, and they feel they're doing so much, and they have trouble delegating to other. So having leadership and ministry training and ministry administration training to learn what is it like to have healthy governance in a church? What is it like to have healthy financial accountability in churches? So these are all areas that are needed if we're going to be growing the church beyond what it is right now, beyond the corner store model of the church. How do we grow the church into something that can mold and grow to the point where we can actually send missionaries locally and regionally and globally? So healthy churches gathering together. So obviously churches need places to gather together. So I thought about, churches need to be praying together. So we founded a prayer center. So we have MEC Pray, that since the pandemic has been very much prayer. And so they bring together dozens of churches to pray with one another about specific topics, prayer events. And then I also felt that it's really important that we need a children's center and we need a conference to be hosting all these different events and initiatives. So healthy churches gathering together, reaching out with the gospel. So obviously we need, a big, huge part of this. If we could make one of these cells bigger than the others, they would be the Evangelism Discipleship Center. Because we as Horizons, we really, that's one of our kind of things that are really on our heart, is teaching how to effectively share the gospel with people of all different backgrounds. Specifically, God's given us a gift with how to reach Muslims, but also MEC Proclaim actually with how to reach traditional Christians with the gospel, because a lot of people had questions about how do we deal with, in the outreaches that we in Beirut. We did a lot of outreaches in Christian areas, and they were becoming more and more open to the gospel, but they still had issues with Virgin Mary. And how do we, so we actually launched this to start discussing and learning from one another effective techniques for evangelism among traditional, Orthodox and Catholic Christians. So there's the Evangelism Discipleship Center. Language is also a key part of missions, both for people that come into to Lebanon and the Middle East and they want to learn regional languages. So we have what's called the LAB, the Language Academy of Beirut, that we started, and it's a GPA method language school. GPA is called the Gradual Participatory Approach. It's like, one of the most cutting edge language learning approaches right now that's spreading throughout the world. we're the first GPA academy in Lebanon. And so we're teaching Arabic to missionaries of all different, and we do virtual, so we do in-person and virtual Arabic lessons. And then we're also teaching the locals. We're doing literacy classes for people who can't read and write in their own language, Arabic. And then we're also teaching other languages. So we've taught English, we've taught French. Sometimes we've had a volunteer that was teaching Spanish to certain people. And so this is trying to see a missions movement happen, to having the language acquisition as part of the global outreach. And then the Aid and Missional Business Center is trying to find ways to income streams that can be supporting the missions movement, and then also how to do humanitarian aid with a high level of a high standard of best practices, and then also how to integrate that with spiritual, just make it aid on its own. So healthy churches gathering together, reaching out with the gospel, having a global voice through media, and being informed by biblically faithful strategy. So that's kind of a version of what the MEC encompasses. So the media side is what we're going to talk about in the session on MEC Creative, where we have arts that we're trying to cultivate throughout the church, to use the God-given talent that's there, and then also training people to produce these arts into filming and recording and editing and all of that. And then also social media is really important. It's the most important distribution technique in our age. Satellite TV is really waning, but social media is just taking off. So just really helping the church to learn all the skills that it takes, from the worship arts to the media production to distributing that media throughout the world. And then in the strategy side, there's missions research, which is so looking at data like Operation World and Joshua Project, where you're actually examining the people of the world. What are their needs? What are their religions? What are the ethnic groups that are out there? What's the status of Bible translation in the world? Which people translations, which people don't. A lot of the Middle Eastern churches are very unaware of what's going on in the world. They kind of maybe have a simplistic view. It's like, okay, the West, they're rich and prosperous. The Eastern people, they're poor, and they come to our country to sweep the streets and pick up garbage and clean our toilets and things like that. And then there's the Arabs, and the Arabs are the best people, or whatever. And then there's the just kind of this simplistic view. We're trying to bring a higher definition vision. And I really believe that, just as so many people have, so many missionaries say, I was reading in Operation World, and I really got stuck on this one page of this people group. Each page in that book has a people group, tugging me toward those people. Well, if nobody had ever put together that information, and nobody had ever distributed this Operation World book, how would they know about this certain people, the Uyghur people of Central Asia, or this or that people of a certain country? So missions research is really critical. And then also missiology. Ziad has been also involved in biblical missiology, our website. And then we've translated a few of our articles into Arabic, but we still are wanting to develop the Arabic side. So where we actually have Middle Eastern minds, more Middle Easterners, writing articles about missiology and how to reach the Middle East with the gospel, in addition to also having Western minds that are writing articles about how to reach the Middle East. And then Linguistics Center, we've recently renamed this Biblical Translation. And so Aaron is one of the staff members with Biblical Translation. So basically teaching Bible translation principles, so that the Middle Easterners can also play a role in translating the Bible into the, into regional language, and and really diversifying the translation effort, because a lot of the translation effort has been led by the West, Western missionaries, areas, and learning the language from ground zero, and then translating the Bible into that language. But there are much more efficient ways of doing that when you get near culture people involved. Then you can do things much faster. One of our partnerships is with the Jesus Film. We've helped the Jesus Film get into a list of languages that they found it very difficult to get into, because they were sending Western members into, places like Tunisia, Bahrain. They were having trouble, getting enough voice actors together, reviewing the translation in those localized areas. So when we sent Lebanese staff members into Tunisia, we were able to get it done really fast. We've done Jesus Film, we've done Bahraini, we've been working on a Saudi dialect for the Jesus Film. And because we already have those kind of regional connections, and it's a near culture, the near culture people are able to operate in a much more efficient way. So all of these platforms, this is not something where we as Horizons are going to do it all in all of these platforms. This is way too big for Horizons to do. But like Ziad said, these are platforms where we can have people from different churches, different organizations come together, each one that has, let's say, a trauma care curriculum here, or they have the media production skills for audio, or for how to do filming, or there's somebody who is a social media expert. I have a friend in San Francisco Bay Area who is an Instagram marketing expert, and he gave a workshop via Zoom to a group in the Middle East of how to use Instagram for ministry. And so he would have never been able to connect with those, and had this platform that we're developing. So the power of this model for me is that it releases the resources and talents about the kingdom. It's not just anymore about what curricula we can write. It's that we don't have to reinvent the wheel in all these areas, but open up these connections so that it can happen in a more orderly way, so that we have people that are following, people that are passionate about any one of these. You can find like-minded people in different countries, in different churches, in different organizations, so that they can be collaborating together. Does anybody have any questions or comments at this point? Fred.
You mentioned there's virtual sites and there's physical sites. Mm-hmm. Do you have a center?
We are dreaming of having a big center. So we do have a couple different locations right now. So I'm going to go back to this slide right here. So right is operating out of 2 campuses that are both rented. So we're kind of in little corners here and there. It's been really difficult to find space for this. Praying and trusting that the Lord is going to help us to build a large center that we've been dreaming of for many years soon. But for now, I was praying about this in 2016, 2017, when the Lord kind of gave this higher definition version of the vision. And I was really praying that the Lord, passion that the Lord would provide this building for us to use to host all these things. And in prayer, I just felt that the Lord was kind of asking me, Pierre, if I gave you this building that you would like, would you be able to use it? Would you be able to steward that building right now? And I just had to say, no, Lord, I don't have the team for this. I don't have resources for this. We're not, honestly, if you gave it to me today, we would be underutilizing that building. And so kind of the message that I kind of got from that was, you know, the Lord spoke to me, but I felt like he was kind of nudging me that, you know, Pierre, you probably need to build out the HR side of this, the human resources side of this. Build the teams, build the leadership, so that maybe someday when the Lord, if the Lord does give us that building, then we can actually deserve that building. We can make good use of that building. Noah? Yes. So we do have foreign interns. We do have a lot of service opportunities, and really we do it through a relationship. So the interns, when they come, they start to form relationships with the you know, the staff and the different, and they find we find where can they plug in. So I would highly recommend, if anybody wants to prepare for the mission field anywhere, even to prepare for the mission field here among Muslims, you know, spending a few months in Lebanon in an internship. It can be, you know, as much or as little as you want. It can be anything from a short-term vision trip to a longer externship, is what we call it, or an internship. You know, the externships would be like 2 to 3 months where you know, just get, you know, orientation on it. Or it can be a 1 to 2 to 3 year internship. We have for our Chinese interns that come, they give a 3-year commitment to stay in Lebanon, and they learn the language, they learn Arabic, and we plug them in to help. Many of the helping in the construction of reconstructing Beirut, the homes that were damaged after the bombing, or not, it's not a bombing, but the explosion that happened. So yeah, I would really encourage, if you guys want to be interns or want to invite interns, and I want to say, don't think of when it comes to internships. We have people who have come in their 60s, and you know, and lived with us in Lebanon, and like, for example, who is in her 60s, came from Oklahoma, and she has become a staff member, and she lives in our women's guest house. And she's like a mother to these Middle Eastern and Western and Eastern Chinese interns that come and stay. And so she's really found her niche and her way of serving. So when we say intern, doesn't have to be somebody who's like, you know, just fresh out of college. It just means that they're temporarily. You could be an intern if you have your own sending organization, or if you're, you know, you don't have to be a long-term horizon staff member to be an intern. But if you know, we provide the housing, the training, and connecting you in with the local teams, so that you can find your place in this broader. And then also, even if it's not being an intern, if you have you know, in terms of partnership opportunities, the sky's the limit. If you have some kind of skill or curriculum that you would want to share, then let's talk about it, and let's see if there is a need for that thing. If that's, you know, if there's not a need for it, we're not going to tell you come and give this training. But what we do is we check with the churches in the area. We check the interest level on this. This is a really needed training. Let's do it. Are we going to do it via Zoom? Are we going to have you come out, and we will customize, you know, those partnership opportunities to try to maximize the impact? Did that answer the question, Linda? So right now, in those 2 different campuses, to continue on your question, so we have, right now we're just finishing a new studio space, which has 2 audio studios and a video studio that we give open access to, you know, to churches to use. We have a worship space. We have an art space. We also have a social media creation room, like this table that has the cameras and lights. It has, you know, like a GoPro camera on a stand, where you can film, like, they're filming like children's videos, like craft videos with a little gospel message. So people are coming in, believers, and they're creating social media content for YouTube or whatever. And then we have some meeting rooms and event halls. We have some, the language academy, and then we also have some office space for co-working, where people can come in and use the space. And we're dreaming of having a lot more facility to be able to offer. But for now, we're just using what we have. The more infrastructure we can offer, the more synergy is happening, and it's bringing effectiveness to the efforts of everybody who's involved. Oh, and we have guest houses. I didn't mention that as well. Go ahead. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, come on up. And when is our time up? 8 minutes. Okay.
I recently met a faithful couple in a church in Tennessee, and we were discussing work in the Middle East. And I discovered they showed me a postcard, and the postcard, had a sunset and a camel. And they said that they're supporting a ministry that smuggles Bibles to Syria. And I said, well, what else do you know? Do you have pictures of? And they said, no, they don't said anything else because of persecution. And I'm sorry for saying that, but I doubt that, because there is Bibles. Bibles are available in Syria if you ask. But they had no information. Now, this is not the issue. The issue with the MEC Center, that's what's great about it. If you want to know more about it, do you want to be part of it? You can be part of it. Where you just ask, and we can send you a link, and you can be part of that class, part of that training. You can come and join us in the afternoon, in the evening, 2 a.m. in the morning, depends on where you are in the world. Some classes I join when I'm here at 2 a.m. in the morning, or you can even join our staff meeting, well, if the boss allows. And you can be there. So you can check on us. You can see what's happening, what material. If you have someone to translate even for you on Zoom. So you can check on that, and you can make sure that it's happening. By the way, my name is Ziyad Al-Helwa. I didn't introduce myself before. I'm a husband and father of 5 kids. I'm a pastor, teaching elder of a church in Beirut Bible Church. It's a bilingual church. Our ministry is English and Arabic at the same time. And we're a small church. We're all volunteers. And Horizons provided support for me so that I can do my church ministry and also train and do ministry with Horizons. And my mind was broadened to the kingdom. So I not only see my local church or our sister around us, but now I see the whole kingdom through Horizons. And this was the great thing that Horizons and working in the MEC and with biblical missiology provided for me as a local pastor. And I'm able to continue in my teaching ministry for my church, but now I'm doing it online, and training, and I'm being trained with the MEC Center. So this is what I love about this center. Thank you.
Amen. Does anyone have questions for Ziyad or me? Any other questions? We have 5 minutes left. Yes, brother. Stay up. Yeah. Yep. It's all free. Yes. Yes. So there's the MiddleEastCenter.org website that you can go on there, and interest form that you can fill out, where if you're in, you can check boxes of which which initiatives you're interested in, and then we will contact you and then make sure that you can get the links to to whatever you want to attend. Yep. Or whatever you'd like to teach or contribute toward.
And if you missed one, we can send you the recording, because they're all recorded as well.
Mm-hmm.
We hear a lot about Muslim
Uh-huh.
So how in Lebanon, how does immigration work if you want to?
Well, in Lebanon, you get, as a U.S. citizen, you get a visa upon arrival for free. You don't even, visa on arrival means you don't even need to apply for the visa. So you just show up at the airport, come on in. And so you get a 1 month visa automatically, renews for another 2 months. So you're good for 3 months. And then you can either, people sometimes just stay on longer and then they get the slap on the wrist on their way out. Or trip to Cyprus, which is about 20 minutes away via airplane. Or they'll go to Turkey, or they'll go take a little trip to Jordan, or to Egypt, somewhere else, take a visa trip, and their horizons of what they're seeing, or maybe they have friends or ministries that they want to visit, and then they come, even if for 1 day, 2 days, whatever, and when you come back, you get a tourist visa. Now, when you're going to stay longer and make a 1 or 2, 3 year commitment, then we'll go through applying for a residence permit. But many, you can do a lot of those tourist visas. Yep. I believe it's true for Canadians as well. Yep. And we have an international team that coordinates the international teams. And so any kind of inquiry that you have about the visa or the budget that it takes, or anything, they're available to answer any questions like that about visas and everything. Anybody else have some questions or ready to come out to Beirut and visit us? Aaron. No. So we have a network of Chinese ministries that send missionaries to us through Horizons International Asia. So Horizons International actually has 3 legal incorporations. So one is Horizons International USA, one is Horizons Lebanon, which is a registered Lebanese charity, Horizons International Asia, which is a registered Hong Kong charity. So through that Hong Kong office, we have a lot of different organizations that will send their missionaries through that office to us. And so they're basically part of the Back to Jerusalem movement. And have you all heard of the Back to Jerusalem movement? Is that the Chinese, they feel they got the gospel from Jerusalem and they want to come bring the gospel back to Jerusalem. And so it's been really awesome to see that passion for that movement back to Jerusalem, but also it's been disappointing sometimes to see the huge attrition rate that Chinese missionaries have, because something like 90-95% end up back at home within 1 year because they really have trouble transitioning to the field culturally. They're coming from a very monocultural Han Chinese mentality, and so they're not really used to dealing with other cultures. So when you put them they sometimes they freak out. They have psychological issues with just not transitioning into that culture. So what we've done is we provided a family for them, provided structure, provided coaching and cultural training for them. So course, and so we've had a really low attrition rate on our Chinese missionaries, because they're able to see fruit from their labor by partnering with the Middle Easterners. They're not on their own. They can just join that team and have that. So yeah, thank you for attending. And I'm excited if you guys want to also hear about MEC Grow, MEC Proclaim, and MEC Creative in subsequent sessions. You're welcome to mix and match. And wonderful having you guys with us.